We talked about all this stuff. Now what is transaction? Let's go. All right. Transactions are a sequence of actions, database operations, which are executed as a whole. So basically እናንተ አሁን እስከዛሬ ስትማሩ ቢኬን ትራን የሆነ ነገር ትጽፋላችሁ ከዛ አፕዴት አለ ሮል ባክ አለ or ኮሚት አለ እንደዛ የምትሉት ነገር አለ so what that basically is that is a transaction በቃ what a transaction is basically begin tran ብላችሁም ጀመራችሁም አልጀመራችሁም አንድ ነገር transaction ቅድም እንዳልኳችሁ usually normal in a normal world most store procedures are not as simple እናንተ እንደዚህ እንደምትጻፉት ትንሽ የሰለክት ስቴትመንት ምናምን አይደለችም usually most store procedures do a lot of stuff ቅድም ያልካቸው አለ አይደል እኔ ሄጂ አማዞን ላይ የሆነ ዳታ ፌስ ላረግ ስል የጫማ ከለር የጫማ ሂል ሃይት የጫማ ይሄ ሁሉ በአንድ ስቶር ፕሮሲጀር ውስጥ መካተት ይችላል ኢማጂን እሱ doing a select right መጀመሪያ ሄዶ select ያደርጋል ከዛ ቴብል ላይ ጫማው ኤግዚስት ያደርጋል ወይ መጀመሪያ do I even have inventory does it true even exist I mean I'm not going to tell the client ጫማው ኤግዚስት ያደርጋል if it doesn't right so መጀመሪያ I will do a select so that is a select statement that is included in that store procedure right መጀመሪያ select statement run ካደረገ በኋላ and then it's going to be like, okay አለ okay now when Mahi goes ahead and puts her card information and actually buys this product I'm going to go ahead and update it so it has to update as well so ያንን ከገዛው በኋላ it goes ahead and says inventory ላይ አንድ ጫማ ቀርቶ ከነበር it goes and says 0 this shoe is not available anymore the last client just bought it I just bought it so Amy መታለ ያንን ጫማ ልገዛ ስትል when she goes and ከሷ Amazon page ላይ ሄደ when she goes and tries to buy it it doesn't exist there anymore it will tell her hey the last item was sold or whatever error they throw in the application layer ያኛው throw ያደርጋል ማለት ነው okay so what a transaction is a sequence of actions. So it's not just one thing that runs different things. In real production environment, store procedures, they're so complicated and very intricate. So now I'm going to give you an example here. And that's how we use the example to fellow. Another example. So a bank transfer from one account to another, a withdrawal plus a deposit. If either the withdrawal or the deposit fails, the whole operation is cancelled. What I'm saying is, any bank account, like I have a Wells Fargo, I have a checking account, and I have a saving account. Let's say this week, I'm feeling rich. I'm about to save some money, right? All right, okay, I have some extra cash. Let me go ahead and transfer money from my checking account into my saving account. ከቼኪንግ አካውንቴ ያወጣሁት 100 ብር ከሆነ ሴቭ የማደርገው ያችን 100 ብር ከቼኪንግ አወጣሁት ወደ ሴቪንግ ሲሄድ ሁለቱ ቼክን ባላንስ ማድረግ አለባቸው ያ the money from my checking account መቀነስ አለበት the money into my saving account መጨመር አለበት ሴቪንግ አካውንቴ ላይ 50 ብር ከነበረኝና ቼኪንግ አካውንቴ ላይ 150 ብር ኖረኝ ከነበረ now my checking account is $50 because 100 ብር ትራንስፈር አደረኩ my saving account has to be $150, right? Because this is a whole transaction. But under transaction, it happen ያደረገው. All this has to happen together. It does not make sense. ከቼኪንግ ላይ 100 ብር ወስዶ ሴቪንጉ ላይ ግን የለም. Does that make sense? No. I mean, that's a fallacy. That's not a transaction. It should never happen. In real world, applications design ሲደረጉ this kind of things should never ever happen. So a transaction ነው ለመባል ከአንዱ ጋር የተወሰደ ትራንዛክሽን ካለ እንዳለ the whole sequence of the transaction has to complete ካላረገ it has to fail meaning ወደዛ ወደ ቼኪንግ የወሰድኩት እያለ let's say something maybe መብራት ጠፋ right ወደ ሴቪንግ ዲፖዚት እያደረኩት መሀል ላይ መብራት ጠፋ or the ATM machine just got corrupt things stopped working yeah, transaction has to roll back. It should not be committed. It should not be happening. I should not go back to my checking account and see that my transaction is like መቶብር deduct አድርጎበታል but saving ላይ የለም. So on the transaction ለመባል it has to have this kind of consistency ሊያስፈልገው ይገባል. So this is what we call a transaction. On transaction ለመባል it has to happen as a whole. Okay? So what can go wrong? አሁን እንዳልኳቸው some action fails to complete. ቅድም እንዳልኩት for example the application software or the database server crashes. ለምሳሌ ቅድም እንዳልኩት ባንክ አካውንቴ ላይ maybe ከኋላ something happened to Wells Fargo like database they have እንደናንተ a new DBA just messed up went ahead and just did something to the database right and then there we go now the system has crashed now the database is corrupt or whatever the database did a restore whatever he did When that happens, so what can go wrong? This is one thing that can go wrong, right? That transaction has to fail. The interface from another transaction. Let's say, what will happen if several transfers run for the same account at the same time? Let's say in Eziga mobile banking, Leila Soroma at the same time is accessing my transaction, right? And if we're doing it at the same time, this may not be a good example. I can give you the Amazon one, right? እኔም ይህንን ጫማ ልገዛ ነው ኤሚም ይህን ጫማ ልገዛ ሁለታችንም አማዞን ላይ ነን ያለ ነው, right? I just went ahead, selected ጫማው and everything. Amy wants the same exact thing, so that means we're accessing the same table, the same objects, the same everything. She wants the same size, the same color. She picked it. አንድ ኢንቨንተሪ ነው ያለው። ኢንቨንተሪ የአማዞን ኢንቨንተሪ ላይ ያ ጫማ አንድ ብቻ ነው ያለው, right? እኔም ራን እያረኩ ነው እሷም ራን እያረገች ነው. So what happens? ሁለታችንም ይሄንን ነገር ፈልገናል. So what happens? How is this handled? This is another thing we're going to talk about. There's some data lost after actions are complete. Database crashes after the withdrawal is complete and all other transactions are lost. ጫማውን ከገዛነው በኋላ ዴታቤዙ ክራሽ አረገ. What should happen after this? So this we're going to talk about. This is what we're going to talk about later. This is what's called the acid property of a transaction. So basically in the shimdada and I want you guys to understand the concept of transaction. What is a transaction? Zimbulo select statement and transaction has to have these things. Database management servers have built-in transaction support, meaning የራሳቸው ይህንን asset property control ያደርጋሉ። And database management, relational database management system, relational database management system ነው ለመባል it has to adhere to this 4 rules, okay? So these are atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. Let's talk about each of them. What I mean, because we already gamashin explain አደርገዋለሁ, ግን we're going to talk about it. Let's see what this is. All right, so acid properties, atomicity, all or nothing transactions, consistency guarantees committed state, isolation, transactions are independent, durability, committed data is never lost. We're going to get back to this. I left this screen so you guys can have a little bit of a view. Atomicity, let's talk about this. Atomicity means transactions execute as a whole. ቅድም እንዳልኳችሁ አንድ መሀል ላይ የሆነ ነገር ከተቋረጠ the whole thing has to be rolled back. It doesn't mean that ከላይ ያለው transaction ከላይ if you have an update statement, an insert statement መጀመሪያ update አድርግና insert አድርግ የሚል የሆነ statement ካላችሁ የሆነ store procedure begin tran ብላችሁ እንደዛ አይነት command ከጻፋችሁ if the update statement fails, the whole thing has to fail. Update statement to ሰርቶ if the insert into የምትለዋ statement fail ካደረገች the whole thing has to fail. SQL Server should not be writing update statement has to roll it back. By default, that's how atomicity ማለት ይሄ ነው. Okay? So atomicity example ቅድም ያልኩት ድጋሜ ነው. Transfer funds between banks ያልኳችሁ either the withdrawal and the deposit both execute successfully or none of them happen. Okay? In case of a failure, the database stays unchanged. If that query run የምታደርጉት query insert like update ብላችሁ ከዛ በኋላ ቀጥለው የሚሰራው ደግሞ insert ከሆነ ያ statement has if something happens in between query aborted ቢሆን or like the database becomes unavailable or something goes on, yeah, the whole thing has to be rolled. This is what we call the atomicity behavior of a SQL server. A simple picture እዚህ ጋር ቅድም ያልኳችሁን explain አድርጓል. I don't want to be too redundant, ግን እንደምታዩት ከሆነ እዚህ ጋር አንድ ነገር begin አድርጎ commit አደረገ. This is a transaction. A successful transaction looks like this, right? እዚህ ጋር ግን አሁን ከዚህ ላይ let me go ahead እና 3 ብር ልጨምር. ከ10 ላይ ደግሞ let me just go ahead እና take $21. This is what I want to take. ከዚህ transaction ላይ 21 ብር ውሰድ. ከዚህኛው ላይ ደግሞ 3 ብር ጨምር ብዬ ከነገርኩት ይሄኛው ፌል ካደረገ if this part fails, this also has to fail. So the beginning የነበረውና መጨረሻ ላይ የነበረው አንድ አይነት መሆን አለባቸው. We cannot have a transaction that is happening እዛ ጋር like ሰርቶ መጨረሻ ላይ ያልሰራ ካለ the whole thing has to be rolled back. So at the end of the day, at the beginning እና at the end የምናየው data and at the beginning and at the end የምናየው data አንድ አይነት መሆን አለበት. We cannot be having a transaction that ቅድም እንዳልከው that is, you know, starts doesn't work and then የሚቀጥለው transaction ካልሰራ the whole thing has to be rolled back. This is the atomicity behavior of a SQL server. Let's talk about consistency. Consistency means that the database is in a legal state when the transaction begins and when it ends. በቃ in a simple ይሄንን you guys can read it as I'm talking. Meaning consistency ማለት SQL server ላይ ቴብላችሁን ስትፈጥሩ አይታችኋል። ቴብል መፍጠር መቼም everybody ያውቃል, right? So yeah, there's null, not null የምትሉት አለ. You guys have created primary keys. You guys have done all these things. So SQL server መጀመሪያ ያ ቴብል ላይ let's say you have የአንዱን ቴብል column length 50 ነው ብላችሁታል ካራክተሩን። የሆነ ትራንዛክሽን ከ50 በላይ የሆነ ትራንዛክሽን ከመጣ or ይሄ nullable የሆነ let's say ይሄ column null መቀበል አይችልም, you cannot accept a null value ካላችሁት በኋላ if you're trying to insert a null value it should fail. Consistency ማለት ይሄ ነው የSQL server ላይ when the person that created that table, when that database was created ያስቀመጥናቸው those consistency checks have to be checked. So SQL server and transaction run ሲያደርግ this is one of the things that has to happen. It has to be consistent. You should not be null የሆነው value ላይ ዝም ብሎ null ማስገባት የለበትም ማለት ነው. You guys should be airing out. ያ query error out ካላደረገ ያ null ነው ብላችሁ ያስቀመጣችሁት ጥቅም የለውም ማለት ነው. I mean it's pointless to use that. So አንድ transaction consistent ነው ለመባል at the beginning የነበረውና መጨረሻ ላይ የነበረው የቴብል structure ወይ ቴብሉ ያለበት legal state has to be the same. Okay, so if you have your new key constraints, your primary key constraints, your column, and these are just high level examples, could be anything, you guys. እዛ ቴብል ላይ ያስቀመጧቸው ኮንስትሬንቶች have to be checked. integrity keep መደረግ አለበት. Okay, and primary key we know duplicate መቀበል እንደሌለበት ትራንዛክሽናችሁ ሲመጣ duplicate key መግባት የለበትም. Simple, easy as that. This is the consistency part of it. Let's talk about isolation. We're going to get a little deeper about isolation. Isolation ማለት ነው and before I even get here አንድ SQL server አሁን ቅድም በአማዞን ኤግዛምፕል ብነግራችሁ ሁለት ትራንዛክሽኖች አንድ ነገርን አክሰስ ሲያደርጉ they have to be isolated from each other. Meaning አሁን ለምሳሌ this is an issue that comes with concurrency of a SQL server. ወደ ኋላ ላይ እንገባበታለን ግን a high level explanation of what a concurrency is, just like the English term says. Concurrency ማለት ምንድነው? አንድ ነገር የተለያዩ select statementዎችም ይሁኑ አንድን ቴብል በቃ 44 55 select ሲያደርገው ማለት ነው። በቃ let's just talk concurrency ማለት ያ ነው. If a relational database concurrency ባይኖረው we're going to have a problem, right? አሁን አማዞን ላይ መሀሌት ጠዋት 9 AM ላይ ተነስቼ የማየው ጫማ ያንን ቴብል ሎክ አድርጌ ከቀብየው ኢንተርናሽናል ያንን አማዞን የሚጠቀመው ሰው እንዳለ ያችን ቴብል ያንን ዴታቤዝ መንካት አይችልም ካልን ምን እየተፈጠረ ነው? It doesn't even make sense business wise, does it? Amazon is losing business. እኔ እዚህ ጋር አንድ ቴብል ሴሌክት ሳረግ let's say that table has other ጫማ types too, like it has other different colors, different heel types ምናምን ያ ቴብል ላይ ያለውን ዳታ ሙሉ አንድ ትራንዛክሽን ዝም ብሎ ለብቻው ሎክ የሚያደርገው ከሆነ it's going to be a problem, right? There's no concurrency. Meaning ሌሎቹ ሰዎች okay እኔ ጥቁሩን እያየው ከሆነ ሌላ ሰው መጥቶ ማንበብ የሚፈልግ let's say some other person is trying to read from the same table ቀይ ጫማ ማየት የፈለገ ሰው ካለ ያንን ቴብል አክሰስ ማድረግ መቻል አለበት because የኔና የነሱ ትራንዛክሽን concurrently run ቢያደርግም against that database we're not accessing the same data. ሮ 1 ላይ ብላክ ከሆነ ሮ 2 ላይ red shoes ከሆነ ከዛ ኋላ gold ከሆነ እዚህ ጋር የሚመታ ቀይ ጫማ መግዛት ከፈልግ she should be able to read from that table. She should be able to see if it's accessible. She should be able to see that. እኔ ያንን ሁሉ ቴብል ለብቻ ሎክ አድርጌ አንድ ጫማ ለመግዛት ብቀመጥ ከሆነ imagine እኔ የሚሰጠው እንጂ could be so many other people buying shoes. Or it could be Hamera, it could be Fafi, it could be anybody, right? So ይሄ ሁሉ ሰው ብላክ መደረግ የለበትም. So concurrency ማለት SQL server and availability high, scalability high እንዲሆን concurrency accept ማድረግ አለበት። ይሄንን የምናደርገው ደግሞ አንድ ትራንዛክሽን ከአንዱ ጋር አይሶሌት ሄዶ ነው ራን ማድረግ ያለበት። ኤሚ መታ የኔን ሄዳ ያንን ቴብል ሴሌክት ስታደርግ ኤሚ should be able to select from that table, right? ኤሚ በእኔ ትራንዛክሽን ብሎክ ተደርጋ መቀመጥ የለባትም unless I'm doing updates or inserts. So ወደ ኋላ እንመጣበታለን። Okay, so let's talk about multiple transactions running at the same time not impact each other's execution. So meta select starak and meta select starak it should be fine. እኔ መጥቼ ያንን ጥቁር ጫማ አፕዴት እያደረኩኝ ከሆነ let's say ያንን ካርቴ ውስጥ አስገብቼ as I'm buying it, Amy should not be able to buy it as well, right? It doesn't make sense because I should have the priority. እዛ ጋ ሄጄ እየገዛው ያለው ሴትዮ አፕዴት ያንን ቴብል አፕዴት እያደረገ ነው ስቴሊንግ it that hey okay ሂድና ኢንቨንተሪ ቴብል ላይ ዜሮ አድርገው ብሎ መንገር አለበት። እሷም እኔም እኩል መግዛት መቻል የለብንም። ከሆነ ምን ይሆናል? ጫማውን ወይ ያገኘዋለሁ ወይ እሷ አታገኘውም፣ ግን she's charged, right? እሷን ቻርጅ አድርጓት ክሬዲት ብሯን ከወሰደ በኋላ but the item is not available. It should never be like that. This is why sometimes አንዳንድ ጊዜ እቃችሁን ካርት ላይ አድርጋችሁ ዞራችሁ ብራውስ አድርጋችሁ ተመልሳችሁ sorry this item is not available የሚላችሁ is because of this isolation level technique. የኔ ትራንዛክሽን እዛ ጋ ያለው ሰውዬ ካርቱ ላይ ያስቀመጠው ሰውዬ ሰሌክት አድርጎ እዛ ጋ አስቀምጦታል። okay I may buy this ብሎ ዜሮ ሸሚዝ መግዛት ፈለገ። somebody is browsing, right? እዛ ጋ ሸሚዝ ገዝቶ ደግሞ ካርት ላይ ግን ኤሚ መታ ያንን ጫማ hey you know first I'm going to go ahead and buy this ኤሚ መታ ያንን ጫማ ከገዛችሁ ይሄ ሰውዬ መጥቶ እንደገና ራን ሊያደርግ ሲል it should tell it hey this item does not exist because ሁለቱ ትራንዛክሽኖች separately ነው ራን ያደረጉት፣ አንድ ላይ ራን ማድረግ የለባቸው። እሱም መግዛት መቻል የለባቸው ማለት ነው against the same table. Okay, so transactions don't see other transactions, uncommitted changes. Isolation level defines how deep transactions isolate from one another. ይሄንን እንገባበታል። isolation level የሚባል ነገር አለ። እቺን አሁን ያልኳትን ነገር there is a way we can manipulate when we're writing queries. Okay, አንዳንድ ጊዜ committed ያልሆነ ዳታ ማንበብ እንድንችል ማድረግ እንችላለን። why this cannot be used on production, you guys. Okay, ይሄንን አንዳንድ query ላይ አየዋለሁ። በቃ production ላይ just drives me crazy. Unless you're trying to pull reports in real life, there is no way uncommitted የሆነ ዴታ ማንም ሰው መጥቶ ማንበብ የለበትም። በቃ እዚህ ጋር መጥቼ begin tran ብዬ roll backም አላልኩም ኮሚትም አላልኩም ቁጭ ብሏል። right? Begin tran ብዬ ግን I'm running something, some kind of update statement run እያደረኩ ነው begin tran ብዬ either I didn't commit it, I didn't roll it back, it's just running. It will hold a lock on that specific object, specific row. የሆነ ሰው መጥቶ ግን እኔ እዛሽ ጋር አፕዴት ያረኳትን ስቴትመንት አፕዴት ብዬ አፕዴቲንግ ኦልሬዲ የሆነ ሰው መጥቶ ኦን ላይክ ሌላ ትራንዛክሽን ራን አድርጎ ሴሌክት ሲያደርግ ያንን አንኮሚትድ የሆነውን ትራንዛክሽን ማንበብ የሚችልበትን መንገድ ፋሲሊቴት ማድረግ እንችላለን። There's a way to do that. The only way የዚህ እንደዚህ ነገር ማይንን መቼ ነው የምንጠቀመው ብላችሁ ጠይቁኝ። I'll say when let's say a report developer or whatever wants to run a report without like creating any locking issues ሳይፈጥር or የነዛን የሚሰሩትን ስራ ሳይጨርሱ whatever, I don't care about if the data is dirty, I don't care if it's committed uncommitted all I care about is like I just want to get some data, I just want to test something የሚል ሰው ካልሆነ በስተቀር on a production level this is usually it shouldn't happen. Okay, this is isolation. So we're going to talk about isolation levels next. I believe that's my next, after durability, I guess that's what we're going to talk about. We'll talk about this in detail. It will make a lot of sense. Durability. The durability aspect means that if a transaction is confirmed, it becomes persistent, cannot be lost or undone. This is ensured through the use of database backups, transaction logs. Okay. Basically forget the resting. So durability ማለት ምን ማለት ነው? አንድ ጊዜ በቃ አለቀ። Okay, so ኤሚ ገዛት ጫማዋን እኔም አልተሳካልኝም። Okay, all right, then I have no shoes for New Year's. And Amy has shoes for her birthday party. There we go. But guess what happens? ያ transaction inventory ላይ update ተደረገ, right? That means it's committed. It's done. After this, SQL Server should not be losing data, has no business losing that data. We have no business losing that data, right? This is why we have transaction log ያለን ለዚህ ነው. This is why we take backups. ይሄ ዱራቢሊቲውን ኢንፎርስ ለማድረግ የሲኩል ሰርቨር ዱራቢሊቲ አቶሚሲቲውን ኢንፎርስ ለማድረግ የምንጠቀምበት መንገድ ነው። ይሄ this part durability ማለት በቃ ቤዚክሊ አንድ ነገር ኮሚትድም ሆነ ሮልባክም ሆነ ያ ስቴት ሲኩል ሰርቨር ያለበት ስቴት has to be durable. That means unless ዲስኩ ራሱ even like on production environments and real world ማለት ነው ራሳቸውን ሁላ ያምኑትም you guys. Even their disk is replicated. ቅድም እንዳልኳችሁ you have virtual machines አራት ተሸንሽኖ አራት ሲኩል ሰርቨር ቢያደርግም ከታች ያለው ዲስክ አንድ ሊሆን ይችላል። In real life, ያንን ዲስክ ራሱ sometimes replicate ያደርጉታል. This is for the durability aspect of things, guys. Meaning, ያ ዲስክ somehow የሆነ ነገር ሆኖ ቢጠፋ or like formatted ቢሆን, which will never happen, But if it happens, they always have a backup somehow. you know, or sometimes they'll come and take like a snapshot backups at midnight or things like that. ይሄ የSQL server or ደግሞ transactional durability keep ለማድረግ የምንጠቀምበት ነው። this is how we have a data loss እንዳይኖረን የምንሄድበት መንገድ ነው ማለት ነው durability ማለት። Okay, so before I do that, in a simple way, I'm going to explain to you these concepts: atomicity, consistency, isolation, duration. Atomicity ማለት አንድ ትራንዛክሽን ላይ ያላችሁ ትራንዛክሽን አለቀ። ያለው ትራንዛክሽን ከላይ ያለው ትራንዛክሽን ቢፈጸም እንኳን ቢሰራ እንኳን ሁለተኛው part of the transaction, if it does not commit, if something happens, this has to roll back ነው በቃ አለቀ። ከላይ ያለው አፕዴት አድርጎ ከታች ያለው አልሰራም ኦ ሶሪ መሆን የለበትም። ኦኬ it has to roll back. consistency የምንለው ደግሞ አሁን ቅድም ያልኩት ምንድነው you have like your primary keys, your nullabilities እኛ ዴታቤዙን ስንፈጥር የፈጠርናቸው ጥቅማቸው ምንድነው? ይሄንን consistency ማለት እዚህ ጋር null value መግባት የለበትም ካለን null value መግባት የለበትም። simple as that. primary key ያለን ካለን duplicate key መግባት የለበትም። አንድ ትራንዛክሽኑ ለመባል ይሄ otherwise it has to fail አለቀ። it has to fail. isolation level ቅድም እንዳልኳችሁ concurrency protect ለማድረግ አንድ ቴብል በተለያዩ ሰዎች አክሰስ የሚደረግ ከሆነ አንዱ ትራንዛክሽን ከአንዱ ትራንዛክሽን isolated ሆኖ ራን ማድረግ መቻል አለበት የምንለው ነው። durability ደግሞ ምንድነው? like I said ቅድም transactional log backup እየወሰደ አንድ ዴታ እንዳይጠፋ so when next time somebody goes and looks at their bank account and all their data is there and they're not broke to have that to kind of mitigate this kind of issues, we will have what we call a durability. durability transactional log እና ዲስኮቹ replicate በማድረግ ምናምን enforce የምናደርገው ነው ለአንድ transaction ማለት ነው። all right, any questions on so far?
my ቅድም ያልሽው ነገር ላይ ሀፕን ሪል ታይም ላይ ሀፕን ስላደረገ ነው። አሁን ለምሳሌ አንድ የሆነ አይተም ፈልግና ኦንላይን ኮስኮ ወይም ኤኒቲንግ የአይተም አለ 12 ወይ 15 አለ ይለኛል፣ ግን ፊዚካሊ ሄጄ ፒክስ አድርግ ያው እንደማይኖር ነው የሚለው። ስለዚህ የአፕዴቲንግ ምናምን ኢሹ ነው ማለት ነው።
ይሄ like so you're saying ካስኮ ላይ ኦንላይን ስታዩ ያ ፕሮዳክት አለ ግን
exactly availability ያሳየኛል like 12 15 ይለኛል፣ ግን ሲሄድ ግን ያው
ኦኬ የለም። ኦኬ that's a good question. ያ ምንድነው simply inventory management። እነዛ ሰዎች እዛ ኮስኮ ሎኬሽን ያሉ ሰዎች they have not updated their inventory. that table has not been updated. ስለዚህ አንተ የምታየው ስቲል የሆነ ዴታ ነው ማለት የቆየ ዴታ ነው እያያለሁ። ሚኒንግ ሜቢ ዛሬ አፕዴት አላረጉትም፣ ሜቢ they didn't go and count. usually inventory እንዴት ነው እንትን የሚደረግ? sometimes ይሰረቃሉ ሪቴል ስቶሮች right? sometimes they have to go and manually count those things right? አንዳንድ ጊዜ they slack ሪቴል ላይ ሰርታችሁ የምታውቁ ከሆነ this people slack, maybe they didn't go counted properly. it could be a simple human error as well. so ያንን ኢንቨንተሪ እዛ ቴብል ላይ ሲያስገቡት they have made a mistake. አፕዴታቸው ላይ ያ አፕዴት ስቴትመንት was wrong ማለት ነው። whatever the inventory person ሲያስገባው whatever ስካን የሚያርጉት ምንም የሚያርጉ whatever the POS ሲስተም ነው ምናምን የሚባለው እሱን የሚጠቀሙ ማኑዋል የሚሆን like የሆነ ሲስተማቸው ላይ የሚያስገቡት whatever they're doing there's some kind of fallacy. ይሄ it could be like የተለያየ ሌቭል ሊሆን ይችላል። but they really ያ ዳታ ግን አፕዴት አድርገውት ቴብሉ ላይ መገኘት መቻል አለበት እውነት አፕዴት ካደረጉት። okay, so for me my answer for that would be I believe it could be maybe they're counting issues where somebody inventory counts ተሳስቷል or they have not updated it at all. so this happens to me all the time too. so this is another aspect. so እነዛ ስቶሮች ሲስተማቸውን አፕዴት አላደረጉትም። ስለዚህ ያ ቴብል wasn't updated። ያ ሊያሳይህ የሚችለው ግን ያለውን ብቻ ነው። okay, it's going to show you a still data. hey, this is what I see. unless እነሱ ራሳቸው ማኔጅመንቱ አፕዴት ካላደረጉ በስተቀር this is not your problem, this is their problem. ግን ዴታቤዙ really contain ማድረግ ያለበትን ዳታ ኮንቴን አድርጓል። it could be a simple human error.
perfect
Mahi and agents channel I think.
okay,
on the isolation part, let's say thousands of buyers online stuff order የሚያደርጉ thousands of buyers አሉ። ቅድም ባነሳሽው ምሳሌ መሰረት ጫማ አንቺና ኤሚ አንዱ ሰው ፕሮሰስ ሲያደርግ ሌላኛውም ሰው እንትን እንዳይል ለማድረግ ትራንዛክሽኑ process እየሆነ መሆኑን for instance let me say there is only one shoes and there are like 5 or 6 people trying to buy that shoes at the same time ብዙ ፕሮሰስ አለው ባይ ለማድረግ አለ ካርድ መክተት አለ ኢንፎርሜሽን መጨመር አለ ፒክ ማድረግ አለ ከመጀመሪያ ሶ ሌላኛውን ላክ የሚያደርገውና ለአንዱ go ahead ብሎ የሚፈቅድለት የትራንዛክሽኑ መጨረሻ ላይ ካርዱን ከቶ ባይ የሚለውን ፕሬስ እስኪያደርግ ድረስ ይጠብቃል ወይስ ፕሮሰስ ጋር የሆነ ታይም ላይ ሌሎች ዘግይቶ የመጡት ላይ ላክ ያደርጋል?
Okay, great. Okay, I see what you're saying. So what Zach is saying is አሁን እንደዚህ 200 ሰዎች ምናምን አንድ ጫማ ሊገዙ መጡ አንድ ጫማ አለ so how do you make sure that this one person gets it አይደለ ዛክ ጥያቄ ይሄ አንድ ፐርሰኑ ያ ሁሉ ሰው ካርቱ ላይ ያስቀምጡት ይሄ እንዴት ነው ይሄ ሰው ሊገዛ የቻለው right is that what you're saying okay good question all right so well እዛ store procedure ላይ ጻፈው store procedure ላይ there may be a trigger there may be an update statement. There may be some part that says, okay, so when somebody else is putting their, and is got credit card in askamit so anta kadme credit card in askamita, commit kalko, so whoever commits it first gets it. Okay? Zach, whoever says enter, and actually, yanan process majarasha lay, okay, go confirm purchase in the bello. Confirm purchase is your commit. If I say confirm purchase before you, oh, you're the 200 ሰዎቹ there I locked it I got it I just updated the system saying that okay this is mine now so it starts that means the minute I say commit SQL server ሄዶ ያንን ሮ update ያደርጋል it goes and says this ጫማ is gone this inventory is gone so 200ዎቹም ሰዎች blocked ሆኑ before that though select we're going to talk about locking how locking works basically ሌሎቻችሁ እያያችሁ ያደርጉ as people are browsing they're running a select statement okay they're doing okay somebody's right okay so they're running a select statement meaning select statement can be shared a lot of people can select from the same table it's fine updating is when it becomes exclusive so the minute I say commit salat yachin transaction yaንን የሚሰራው store procedure is going to go ahead and update that specific row saying mahalit just bought it so let me go ahead and update this inventory to 0 one የነበረውን let me put it to 0 so nobody else can do that እስከዛ ድረስ ግን ሁሉም ሰው አብሮ access ማድረግ ይችላል SQL server ይሄንን enforce የሚያደርገው is by using locks you guys lockዎች የተለያዩ አለ በኋላ እናወራቸዋለን there is shared lock ምንላቸው አለ exclusive lock ምንላቸው አለ shared lock is for readers that means everybody that is viewing that object can view the object but until card ላይ አስቀምጠ credit card አስቀምጠ until I say purchase I'm not exclusively locking I'm not exclusively updating that statement. So let's ያንን እስካላደረኩ ድረስ ያ object looks like it's available. You see it as if it's there. But the minute when you are over there and I say purchase ብያችን commit ሳረጋት ያችን transaction so basically begin trying to be ቁጭ ብዬ ነበረ select እያደረጉ እያየሁ ነበረ ከዛ the minute I say commit ስላት ያችን ነገር ሄዶ ያንን update ያደርጋል it tells the table that okay this inventory is now 0 so እነዛ 200 ሰዎች maybe still ተቀምጧል ካርታቸው ላይ but the minute they go ahead and እነሱ purchase ሲሉት it's not there anymore I'm sorry the transaction number 1 got it before you guys okay so it's first come first served
got it thanks
no problem
I have a question.
okay
So Ziga, like you said, it's gonna be table lock because of the 200 people trying to buy the same table. I mean shoes, right?
No, not a table lock. Table lock is very aggressive for this. Okay, table lock ማለት ቴብሉን እንዳለ ሎክ አድርገሽዋል. That means all these other people can't read.
So what kind of lock ነው የሚሆነው for the other 200 people?
It's going to be a shared lock. Okay.
Oh, I see. Shared lock. So it's not table lock. Other people can use it.
Yes.
Like different. Okay.
Yes. Table lock ማለት you don't want to lock the whole entire table. You're locking the entire table. ማለት ሌሎች ሰዎች ሊያነቡ አይችሉም. If a table is exclusively locked by something, nobody else can touch that table. Only my transaction can touch that. Okay.
Okay. So it will be a shared lock on the table.
on, and it will be a shared lock on actually intent shared የምንለው አለ በኋላ ላይ እናወራለን about these things. Okay, so በኋላ ላይ it's part of my PowerPoint. I'll break it down how these things work.
Okay,
okay, no problem. Fafi?
ሰው ከ200 ሰዎቹ ለምሳሌ ሁለት ሰው እኩል የሆነ ትራንዛክሽን ቢያደርጉ commit አይደረግም ማለት ነው it will roll over እና fail ማለት ነው አይደለ
okay so that is another thing we're going to talk about so that would be like they will be deadlocking okay so soon እናወራለን በኋላ ላይ we're going to talk about that
thank you
okay another questions okay all right guys I like the participation thanks for asking questions alrighty we're going to get deeper it's going to get a little confusing bear with me please bear with me I beg you all right let's talk about concurrency we talked about concurrency okay it looks like Addis Ababa traffic as you can see so concurrency if it's not controlled by the transaction it's very hectic SQL Server engine lockዎችን በስነ ስርዓት handle የማያደርግ ከሆነ we're going to have issues just like this little roundabout you see right here you may have some accidents happening you may have some issues happening so concurrency ማለት ቅድም እንዳልኳችሁ አንድ ሰው አንድ ነገር ለብቻው ሎክ አድርጎ ተቀመጠ ማለት meaning I mean there may be cases where you know ለምሳሌ database restore ስታደርጉ you're taking a database exclusive lock meaning ይሄንን database nobody can connect it ከዚህ ውስጥ database restore አድርጋችሁ ብታውቁ ሰዎች ካላችሁ when you bought to restore ask you fail ያደርጋል መጀመሪያ restore ልታደርጉ it tells you there is some existing connections mahi you can't do this ብሎ ፌል ያደርጋል ሶ ሄዳችሁ ሄ ኦኬ ክሎዝ ያሉኝን existing connections ክሎዝ አርግና ሪስቶር አርግ so this kind of things basically lock the whole entire database as you're restoring nobody else can update the data anyway the data is not even accessible you're in the middle of a restore right so እንደዚህ አይነት ሎኮች completely databaseን ራሱን በቃ completely ነው ላክ የሚያደርገው okay so but like in a hypothetical sense ቀደም ባልኩት እኔ በኔ ባልኩት እንትን አማዞን ላይ እኔ ልገዛ ስል መሐሌት አንድ ጫማ ስትይ ህብረተሰቡ እንዳለ ቁጭ ብሎ መጠበቅ የለበትም መሐሌት እስክትገዛ right even though I'm just doing read shared የሚባል ነገር የለም ብለናስ ምንም ነገር there's no shared lock የሚባል ነገር በኋላ ላይ እንደርስበታለን newbies if you guys are confused we're going to talk about this so የሆነ lock ላይ የሆነ table lock አርጌ ለብቻ ቁጭ ብዬ እኔ ብቻ access ማደርገው ከሆነ what's the whole point of having a database I mean በወረቀት መጻፍ አይሻልም like there's no point right so concurrency ማለት ብዙ ሰዎች አንድ ላይ አንድን database access እንዲያደርጉት የምንጠቀምበት መንገድ ነው ማለት it won't be as hectic as you see right here round about አደባባይ ላይ all right so concurrency problems all right concurrency problem ያመጣል though even though it's a great thing even though we love you know having concurrent transactions concurrency has its own problems from completing operations let's look at these 3 parts I mean bear with me maybe a little confusing but let's go about it one by one dirty read or temporary updates. Okay, a transaction updates an item. Oh man, this guy's up with ነገር በጣም እኔ ራሴ confused አደረገኝ. All right, let me just say this. Dirty readers would let me just explain this. እኔ እዚህ ጋር መጥቼ አንድ ትራንዛክሽንን እየጻፍኩኝ እያለ that means I'm updating a table. I'm updating a specific row. ላይ መሐሌት የምትገዛው ጫማ ጥቁር ነው ብዬ ቀይ ነበረ ኦኬ ጥቁር ነው ብዬ I'm just updating it ዝም ብዬ like from the back end ነው I'm forget Amazon right now for now we're just doing a simple update statement እኔ እዚህ ጋር መጥቼ update statement እየሰራሁ እያለ የሆነ ሰው መጥቶ ያንን ዴታ ሲያደነብ if he or she is able to read that data አሁን update ምንም ኮሚት አላረኩትም ገና አይደል update begin transaction አልኩኝ update አልኩትኝ correct update ብዬ የሆነ ሰው መጥቶ ከኋላ ያንን ቴብል ላይ select አድርጎ ሲያነብ if that person sees የመሐሌት የሚገዛው ጫማ is ምን ነበር ያልኳችሁ ቆይ let me just start from the beginning እኔ የመሐሌት የሚገዛው ጫማ is red ብዬ እዚህ ጋር update እያደረኩኝ የሆነ ሰው መጥቶ ያንን ዴታ ሲያነብ if it shows it select ሲያደርግ if it shows that red የሚለውን ካሳየ really though ይሄ ዴታ is not committed yet rollback ላረገው እችላለሁ። I'm just in the middle of updating. You guys begin tran ብለን ስንቀመጥ what happens? Unless I commit or roll back, what happens to that transaction? ቁጭ ይላል. Yes, it will update the table. ከኋላ መጥቶ እዛ ጋር ማንበብ የሚችል ሰው ካለ he can go or he or she can go and read that table and they will be able to see an update statement. That is ብላኩን አይታያቸውም የሚለው it's going to be red. ግን let's say I go back and roll back አረኩት. So rollback ሳረገው ያንን transaction ያ ቴብል ላይ ጥቁር የነበረውን ቀይ የቀየርኩትን I just decided you know what, let me leave it as black. I don't want to change this number anymore. ብዬ rollback ሳረገው ያ የሚያነበው ሰው the other person ቅድም ያነበበው ዴታ ምን ይባላል? dirty read ይባላል። Okay, meaning this ያነበብከው data is wrong. It does not exist on the database anymore. So what are you talking about? This data does not exist on that table because መጀመሪያ ያንን ትራንዛክሽን አፕዴት ያደረገ የነበረው ሰውዬ ቢካዝ ምን ብለናል you guys? concurrency ነው አይደል? ትራንዛክሽን 1 አለ፣ ትራንዛክሽን 2 አለ። ሁለት separate transactions running from two different machines ብለን እናስባቸው against the same table against the same row, right? so እዚህ ጋር መጥቼ እኔ ትራንዛክሽን 1 ላይ ያንን specific row ጥቁር የነበረውን ቀይ እያቀየርኩት ነበር begin tran ብዬ። okay, this is the thing with begin tran. Unless I say commit or roll back ሳልል ዝም ብሎ ተቀምጧል እዛ ጋር it's just updating, maybe it's updating a bunch of other rows as well on that table. ያ ሰው መጥቶ if they run the transaction 2 መጥቶ if it runs a select statement from that table, from that database, SQL that data is called dirty read because እኔ እዚህ ጋር መጥቼ roll back ሳረገው ያሮ አልተቀየረም። ያሮ is back to black but ይዛ ጋር ቅድም ያነበበው ሰው is reading is red. So የዛ ሰው data is dirty. It's no longer exists on that table ማለት ነው። እዛ ቴብል ላይ exist አያደርግም ማለት ነው። All right? So another thing, same thing is like another, okay, I don't want to get too deep. I don't know if I should explain this for the second two topics, but let me just go over them. Non-repeatable read የምንለው ደግሞ አለ። እነዚህ ምንድን ናቸው? በኮንከረንሲ ምክንያት የሚመጡ ኢሹዎች ናቸው። I'm not talking about አሁን SQL ሰርቨር ላይ ግን ይሄ happen ያደርጋል እንዳትሉኝ። Okay, this is a high level, this is an idea. This is አንድ ትራንዛክሽን ኮንከረንት ሲሆን ሊመጡ የሚችሉ ችግሮችን እየነገርኳችሁ ነው ያለሁት። አይሶሌሽን ሌቭል ምናምን ስናወራ I'll show you this topic slowly. dirty read አሳያችኋለሁ በኋላ ላይ in a little. I have a small demo for you guys. I'll show you guys what a dirty read looks like. አንድ ትራንዛክሽን ጀምሬ ሮል ባክ አድርጌ አንድ ትራንዛክሽን ጋር ስገባ የሚመጣውን አሳያችኋለሁ what happens. Non-repeatable read a transaction reads an item twice and gets a different values because of okay, a concurrent change. Let me just say this. So ይሄ ምን መሰላችሁ? The same thing. አሁን መጥቶ የመጀመሪያው አንድ ትራንዛክሽን አንብቦ ሄደ። so ያ ሰው ትራንዛክሽን 2 አሁን ተመልሶ መጥቶ ሲያነበው what happens? Now it's black, right? because ቅድም ሬድ ብዬ ሮል ባክ አረኩበት። so ተመልሶ ያንን ዴታ ሲያነብ if that data is back to black, that means it's called non-repeatable read ይባላል። ይሄ meaning አንድ ያነበባችሁን ዴታ ተመልሶ መጥቶ ኦኬ አንኮሚትድ የሆነውን ትራንዛክሽን አንባችሁ ከሄዳችሁ ካነበበ በኋላ ያ ትራንዛክሽን ተመልሶ መጥቶ ያንን ዴታ ሲያነባው እና that data is now black, we call this a non-repeatable read situation. የቅድሙ ምንድነው? dirty read የመጀመሪያ አንብቦ ሄደው dirty read አነበበ ይባላል። meaning ዴታቤዙ ላይ ኤግዚስት የማያደርግ አነበበ። non-repeatable read ምንለው ሲናሪዮ ደግሞ ምንድነው? አንዴ ካነበባችሁ በኋላ ተመልሳችሁ መታችሁ the same ዴታ ስታነቡ ቅድም ቀይ የነበረው ተመልሶ መጥቶ ሲያነበው black ሆነ። that is what a non-repeatable read phenomenon ይባላል። ተመልሶ መጥቶ ትራንዛክሽኑ ሲያነበው the data does not exist anymore. This is non-repeatable read. Phantom read የምንለው ደግሞ is a transaction executes a query twice and obtains a different number of rows. ይሄ ደግሞ phantom read የሚባለው phantom, it's happening over a row. okay, መታቸውን ለምሳሌ let's say እኔ right here I did begin tran delete ብዬ I deleted some rows. ቅድም ያለው transaction አንድ row ነው መጥቶ ያነበበው። አሁን ደግሞ let's see we're trying to get the row count of people who have black shoes. okay, the row count of people who have black shoes. row count አርጎ የሆነ ትራንዛክሽን 2 መጣና አሁን ደግሞ let me go do a row count ሲያደርግ 45 ነበረ, right? so transaction A አሁን እዚህ ጋር delete statement ጀምሬ I rolled back. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want this to happen. You know what? I don't want to delete. Maybe I want to delete 2 rows, right? 2 row delete ለማድረግ ፈልጌ ነበር transaction 1 ላይ ያ ትራንዛክሽን ሮል ባክ ሳረገው 45 የነበረው ያነበበው ቅድም ያነበበው ነው 45 ነበር ማይነስ ደ 2 ማለት ነው። አሁን ተመልሶ መጥቶ ያ ሰው ሲያነበው is what 47 ሆነ right because the data was never deleted. This is what we call a phantom read. This is over a set of rows. ሌሎቹ is happening over a distinct row. ይሄኛው is happening over a set of rows and we're usually doing aggregate functions like rows, where, ምናምን ብለን discount statement ውስጥ ስንጠቀም የምናገኘው የconcurrency problem ነው phantom read ማለት you guys. I'm going to go over this one more time because I know 100% I have confused you guys. Let me go over it, all right? Dirty read ማለት የሆነ transaction A አለ transaction B አለ. Transaction A is in the middle of an update. Transaction B መጥቶ ያንን ዴታ ሲያነብ ማንበብ ከቻለ by default SQL Server ይሄንን አይፈቅድም okay ግን there is a way to allow this. I'll show you guys in a little bit. ያንን ዴታ መጥቶ ሲያነብ ያገኘው ዴታ አለ transaction ከዛ you know what I changed my mind, let me roll back እቺኛዋን የቀየርኳትን row let me just roll it back and put it back to the way it was. ያ ሰው አንብቦ ሄዷል already. Transaction is done reading, right? ያ ያነበበው data is called a dirty read. We call that a dirty read. Non-repeatable read ማለት transaction 2 አሁን እንደገና ተመልሶ ደግሞ ሲያነብ it gets a different data. So ዴታዎቹ አንድ አልመጡም ማለት ነው። ቅድም ሳነብ ቀይ ነበር፣ አሁን ደግሞ ሳነብ ብላክ ሆነ። ይሄ ደግሞ non-repeatable read ይባላል። meaning repeat አድርጌ መጥቼ ላነበው ስል repeatable ሆኖ አላገኘሁትም። non-repeatable read ይባላል። dirty read is a concept. non-repeatable read ደግሞ basically ተመልሼ መጥቼ ሳነበው ያ ዴታ አንድ አንሆነልኝም ማለት ነው። okay you reading it twice. የመጀመሪያው ላይ you reading it once. okay የመጀመሪያው ላይ as the update is going on you reading it once. ሁለተኛው ላይ ደግሞ roll back ወይ commit ከተደረገ በኋላ ተመልሳችሁ ስታነቡት you get a different data. We call that a phantom read, a non-repeatable read phenomenon. Phantom read ደግሞ የሚባለው is a set of rows. Transaction 1 is in the middle of deleting specific rows. Transaction 1. Transaction 2 መጥቶ went ahead and did the row count. Row count ሲያደርግ deleted የሆኑትን rows አውጥቶ ነው አይደል row count የሚያደርገው because I just deleted 3 rows. I'm in the middle of a transaction. I have not committed. I have not rolled back. But I just went ahead, you transaction 2 መጥቶ just went ahead and read that data. ያንን count አድርጎ ሲያየው oh okay so I have 40 rows. okay ግን really transaction A 10 row delete አድርጌያለሁ right so ያ 10 row ያደረኩትን ቀንሶ ነው ያኛው ያነበበው the transaction to ያነበበው so that becomes a phantom read. My row count is now a fallacy because roll back ሳደርገው የኔን transaction 1 10 data 10 row delete ላደርግበት የነበረውን when I roll it back those 10 rows are back. The stored rows are not deleted anymore. So ያ data ምን ሆነ ማለት የዛኛው adjusted a phantom read. Adjusted a row count of a table that the table columns are not the same. All right, the column numbers that we just counted are not the same. We call that phantom reads. Okay, ይሄ ምንድነው? So ይሄ happen የሚያደርገው while one transaction is running something, another transaction መጥቶ የሚሰራቸው ስራዎች የሚያመጡት ፕሮብለሞች ናቸው። Okay, ይሄኛው የመጀመሪያው ቴብል የሚሰራቸው ስራዎች አሉና አፕዴት ኢንሰርት ሁለተኛው ትራንዛክሽን መጥቶ ያኛውን የሚያነባቸው ነገሮች these are the things that are caused by ሁለተኛው ትራንዛክሽን የሚያደርጋቸው dirty readም ሆነ non repeatable readም ሆነ phantom readም ሆነ ማለት ነው። okay so how does SQL Server control concurrency? So SQL Server እንዴት ነው እንደዚህ አይነት ኢሹዎች እንዳይፈጠር ቼክ የሚያደርገው? የመጀመሪያው is locking. So we're going to get to the nitty-gritty of locking, I believe. Okay, good. የሚቀጥለው is locking. I should have added a second point right here. Another one is isolation levels. Okay, isolation level በመጠቀም ይሄንን እነዚህን ነገሮች ኮንትሮል ማድረግ እንችላለን። Okay, how do we control it? We're going to get to that. But SQL Server ይሄንን ነገር mitigate የሚያደርገው this issues እንዳይፈጠር የሚያደርገው is by issuing locks. ሎኮች የተለያዩ አይነት ሎኮችን በመጠቀም SQL Server blocks other transactions from having this reads that they shouldn't be reading, like dirty read እንዳይፈጠር, phantom read እንዳይፈጠር, okay, non-repeatable read እንዳይፈጠር. SQL Server controls these things by locking. Another way we can go about is by by setting an isolation level. Isolation level transaction ላይ ነው ራሳችን set የምናደርገው. Let me go to, before I talk about locking, I wanted to include isolation levels for you guys, okay? So there's 5 different types of isolation levels. I'm not going to talk about these other ones because I'm going to confuse you guys, and this is going to be the whole entire course on ሊቀመጠው ነው. So I'm not going to do this, but I suggest you guys to read this 3. ከላይ ያሉትን I'm going to explain to you guys, but the repeatable read, the serializable read, snapshot read የሚሉትን አንብቡ. If you have questions, write them down. You guys, I am available. You can always ask me questions. ወይ የሚቀጥለው ክላስ ላይ እንጠይቃቸዋለን or anything. Write them down. Know about them because they're useful. I would say ይጠቅማቸዋል by ነኝ. It will be very good. Broaden ያደርገዋል knowledgeአችሁን. Okay? So I would say read about them. But read uncommitted እና read committed, I'm going to show you guys right now how it is, what it is. Okay? All right. Read committed. Read committed is how the SQL Server right now, that's how the SQL Server set up ይደረገው. Like this is the default behavior. Meaning አንድ transaction A commit ሲያደርግ transaction 2 ማንበብ አይችልም. transaction 2 ቁጭ ብሎ መጠበቅ አለበት until transaction 1 finishes. This is the default value. Okay? አንድ transaction ሳይጨርስ ሌላኛው transaction መጥቶ ማንበብም ምንም ማድረግም የለበትም unless ሁለቱም select statementዎች ከሆኑ that's fine. Okay? ሁለት select statement በአንድ run ማድረግ ይቻላል. But if one transaction right here is updating and doing all these other things, የዛኛውን transaction block ማድረግ መቻል አለበት until it's committed or rollback. አለበለዚያ ያኛው transaction ቁጭ ይላል. This is what we call blocking. It sits there and gets blocked. Okay? ወደ በኋላ ላይ ስለ blocking እመጣለሁ. But for now, this is the concept of what a blocking is. All right, ያ ቴብል እየተነበበ አፕዴት እየተደረገ while I have exclusive, what we call an exclusive lock. exclusivity እንደምታውቁት ከሆነ exclusively ለአንድ transaction block ተደርጓል, safe ተደርጓል, or lock ተደርጓል ያ table, ያ row, ያ index page, ያ data page. Okay, while that thing is locked, ሌላ ቴብል መጥቶ ሌላ transaction መጥቶ ያንን ቴብል ማንበብ አይችልም. በቃ this is the default behavior of a read committed. A transaction will see only those changes made by transactions that were already committed when it began, and its changes will not be visible to other until it has committed. Meaning, ቅድም ያልኳችሁ እኔ እዚህ ጋር transaction begin transaction update ምናምን ብዬ እዚህ ጋር update እያደረኩ እያለ የሆነ statement ሌላ transaction 2 መጥቶ ማንበብ አይችልም. This is the default behavior of a SQL Server. This is why we have blocking. This is why we have deadlocking. This is why we have locks. Okay? This is why SQL Server enforce የሚያደርገው concurrency, enforce የሚያደርገው that integrity ቅድም ያልኳችሁ ሁለት ሰው በአንድ ጊዜ 44 ሰው በአንድ ጊዜ አንድን ነገር update እንዳያደርግ የሚከለክልበት መንገድ is because of this isolation level. This is what is called read committed. I'm going to show you guys a little demo in a little bit. መጀመሪያ let me go to read uncommitted. Read uncommitted is the second thing. Read uncommitted, in this isolation level, transactions can view the result of uncommitted transactions. This level is rarely used in practice as the performance is much better than other levels, which have many advantages. So basically, ይሄ ምንድነው? read uncommitted ቅድም እንዳልኳችሁ you are going to go and read the data that is uncommitted. That data is called what? The dirty read. You guys are going to have dirty reads. Meaning uncommitted የሆኑትን transactions ሂድና አንብብ. I don't care. ይሄ አሁን የጻፍኩት transaction, this code that I have right now, go ahead and read, do and read uncommitted. ሂድና አንብብልኝ. I don't care what's going on with that update statement. I don't care if there's other transactions. Maybe transaction 1 ብቻ ላይሆን ይችላል. Maybe there's other transactions doing other things. I don't care what happens. Just go ahead and read it. You know, because it, like usually ቅድም እንዳልኳችሁ usually code ላይ no lock ምናምን የምላቸው በዚህ ነው. no lock hint ምናምን አይታችሁ ከሆነ usually እነዛ ኮዶችን አስገብተው ሰው ሲጠቀሙ this is what they're doing. They're just saying, you know what, I don't care. ምንም ነገር locking ምንም ሳትጠብቅ, do not look at any locking, block, anything. Just go ahead and read this data for me, please. Okay, this is what read uncommitted is. So የቅድሙ ላይ read committed ላይ we don't have to set anything. አሁን እናንተ query ስትጽፉ ከላይ ምንም you're not doing set transaction isolation level read committed አትሉ because default value ነው. You don't have to write that. But this is not the default value. As the other ones, ቅድም ያልኳቸው repeatable read, serializable, snapshot ያልኳቸው እንዳለ set transaction isolation level, repeatable read, set transaction isolation level, ብላዜ ብላዜ እያልን እዛ ጋር እየጻፍን we can run transactions በራሳችን on our own what is it called window on our own query እንደዛ አይነት queryዎችን run ማድረግ እንችላለን. So now let me go ahead and show you how this works, okay? So I had started a little demo earlier. Do you guys see my screen, you guys? I don't know if you guys see the whole screen. Do you guys see my SQL Server screen? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right, guys. All right, so I have a table that I created for selected, actually, let me go here and show you like some crazy store procedures as an idea. And let me I want to get the statements. Okay. So usually store procedures, you guys, this is a small store procedure, unlucky for you guys, but there are በኋላ ላይ or say these are parameters እነዚህ ፓራሜትሮች እያስገባን ነው የምንጠቀመው. Let me just not jump the gun, okay? I'll show you guys an በደንብ ፈልጌ I'll show you guys maybe tomorrow አሳያችኋለሁ because now I have to go through all that database stuff. Okay. So I have a table called students, all right? There you go. ID Nelly ምናምን is just set up. I quickly set it up right before this class. Okay, so now we have that table. What is this? Oh, I need it. Okay. All right. So let's have different sessions open here. So like this is to deposit that we have different transactions coming in Milon. Let's just open different transactions. I'm going to open a new query here. I'm going to open another new query here. Okay. Now I have I have this here. All right. So SQL Server default behavior ላሳያችሁ. Okay. I have this begin transaction. So transaction 1 is the gal, right? I'm going to update የዚህን የስቱደንት will የwillን will is where is will is here GPA 2.25 okay I want to update it to 3.1 all right so your willin GPA I want to change it from 2.25 to what to 3.1 this is what this query is doing right this is session 1 this is my session this is what I want to do okay all right let's have session 2 all right session 2 let it do a select statement just let it do a select star all right this is I'm going to show you ይሄ የSQL diff ምንም ነገር አታዩም ቅድም ያሳያችሁ set isolation level ምናምን የሚባል ነገር አታዩም እዚህ ጋር right you're only seeing select star from student okay so now let me do begin transaction let me try nope not on adventure works on performance tuning that's why you see the command parser right there acting up all right so it's running አሁን ይሄ you guys rollback አላርኩትም ኮሚት አረ በርግጥ ጨርሷል right ግን is waiting for other transactions to happen እዚህ ጋር insert update ምናምን ያልኩ መጨመራቸው ሌሎች insert statemenቶች ቢኖሩ ይኖሩ ጨምራቸው ነበር ግን right now think of it as if it's running right now execute እያደረገ ያለ maybe in real world you guys are not just updating that you guys are doing so many other things join አርጋችሁ ምናምን because there's foreign keys primary keys ምናምን join a lot of things are happening here but for me right now for this specific small demo I'm going to show you guys so let me try to read from that table my bad I'm going to do this here so let me try to do this what's happening guys it's blocked it's running why because a statement is not update either rollback አላረኩትም either commit አላልኩትም right it's open it's as if it's just running so right now a table is locked is the table like not table the specific row is locked so a query cannot run anything right now so it's waiting until this finishes a ምንም አይነት እንትን አይሰጠንም ምንም አይነት data ሊሰጠን አይችልም it's just going to sit here and wait it's going to be blocked it's blocked and it's waiting Okay, so a simple like to show you guys ይችን በኋላ ላይ query ላይ ያሳያችኋለሁ but we use SPH2 ስራ ላይ ያላችሁ ሰዎች ታውቁታላችሁ ይሄንን ለማታውቁት ደግሞ በኋላ ላይ ስናወራ ታዩታላችሁ so if I run this and I come here I'm going to see that my session is blocked by 69 meaning this is session 69 this is session 67 so session 67 is sitting here and it's just blocked there is no way of unblocking this until this is done okay so while ይሄኛው still run እያደረገ ነው right አላቆምኩትም I'm not stopping it I'm not doing any magic right so when I come here and I do the rollback let me roll back I don't want to change this anymore let me just go ahead and roll back all right when I go ahead and execute this ይሄኛው automatically ዳታውን አመጣው okay this is the read committed behavior of SQL Server this is the default behavior ይሄ ነው as other transactions are going this specific objects የሚፈልጋቸው index ይሄ index አይደለም index object ምንም ይሁን those things are locked so እዚህ ጋር select star ሳረግ is locked there's a rule of thumb that I want you guys to always remember writers block readers የሚባል statement አለ when something is writing inserting updating when there's a DML statement going on, whatever it is, whatever read you're trying to take out, whatever shared lock you're trying to do. So basically, ihe transaction right here has an exclusive lock. Okay, it's holding an exclusive lock to update the specific row. In real world, this should not take a long time, right? So it's almost instantaneous. So you would not even see the blocking effect. Okay, የዚህን ነገር አሁን ይሄን አፕዴት ዝም ብዬ ራን ባረገው አሁን it runs fast without the rollback ምናምን ዝም ብዬ ራን ባረገው without the big intro it runs fast it goes and updates it እዚህ ጋር select statementu won't even be affected because it's done within microseconds but if this transactions እዚህ ጋር የምናደርጋቸው transactions they're long and intricate and complicated we cause blocking because SQL Server has to lock it ያንን committed የሆነውን transaction ብቻ ስለሆነ የሚያሳየው by default it would block it. This would be locked. Okay? አሁን እዚህ ጋር መጥቼ ይሄ የቅድሙ ዴታ ነው. If I run SPH2 again, you will not see any blocked transactions anymore because that transaction ሁለተኛው transaction ራን አድርጎ ጨርሶ ወጣ. የመጀመሪያው ሲጨርስ ሁለተኛው ራን ያደርጋል. Okay? This is how concurrency is handled by the SQL Server. All right, so we're human, right? I want to go ahead and do the read uncommitted ያልኳችሁን የቀድሙ so data was still consistent it's the same thing the second was not necessary so now I want to go ahead and set the isolation level okay now let's just go ahead and do this so ቅድም ራን ያደረኩት እዚህ ጋር አለ now I want to run the instead of just this let me just do it right here so read uncommitted ደግሞ ላሳያችሁ so instead of running ዝም ብለን which is read ምንም specify ካላደረግን ምንድነው read committed run አርግ እያለ ነው meaning anything that is blocked run እንዳታረግ ነው basically so read uncommitted ደግሞ ማለት we set the transactional isolation level to read uncommitted now I want you to select star from student all right let me go ahead and update የቀድሞ እንደገና መልሼ run ላርጋት okay I'm going to keep running the transaction all right it's running እዚህ ጋር row affected ቢላችሁም roll back አላልኩትም commit አላልኩትም begin a transaction keep running that means we have a lot of things going on right here right so now let me go ahead and run this አሁን የዊል ዳታ ምን ሆነ guys will is 3.1 right update ያረኩትን statement አነበበው uncommitted የሆነውን statement ምን አደረገው አነበበው this is a what a dirty read uncommitted gives you a dirty read. This is not a dirty read yet, actually. Because እዚህ ጋር roll back ካረኩት በኋላ ተመልሶ መጥቼ ይሄንን ላንብብ this is a dirty read. በቃ ተመልሼ መጥቼ ላንብብ ስል የድሮውን ዳታ ነው የሚሰጣችሁ 2.25 ነበር እሱን ነው የሚያሳያችሁ. so isolation ሌቭሎቹ ምንድነው የምንጠቀማቸው አሁን ባልኳችሁ መንገድ SQL Server lock እንዳያረግባችሁ ስትፈልጉ this is usually used for reporting purposes this is not recommended for production data because እዚህ ጋር ያለው transaction ገና ብዙ ነገር እየሰራ ነው right እናንተ yes greedy ሆናችሁ you just want to go ahead and run the data and leave but really ያገኛችሁት የዊል ስሚት okay where Will Smith GPA is 3.1 but meanwhile Will Smith is not that smart is he has a 2.5 GPA right so you just gave this guy a boost okay so in real life if this was a school you're screwed የሰጣችሁት data Will Smith graduate አደረገ በ3.1 all right ስለዚህ this in real life ልንጠቀም አንችልም እንደዚህ ነገር because this is not a good way to do things the only solution the only time ይሄን ልንጠቀም እንችላለን የምልበት point is for reporting purposes because you try to run let's say like ይሄ report በቃ ሌሎች ነገሮችን look ሳያደርግ I just wanted to grab data I want to see if like the rows come up like this እዚህ ጋር ያረኳቸው select star ብቻ ላይ ነው ይችላል እዚህ ጋር maybe I'm joining or whatever I'm doing እዚህ ጋር የሚያመጣልኝ data like ከላይ ኮለሙ ልክ መሆኑ ምናምን ነው እንጂ የዴታውን consistency የምትፈልጉ ከሆነ you will never use this because you are reading data so let me just go ahead and roll it back okay ይሄን roll back ሳረግ አሁን መጥቼ ተመልሼ ይሄን ለሲ run ባረጋው the data is now 2.25 right because ቅድም አሁን ይሄ ምንድነው non repeatable ያልኳት ቅድም መጣች ማለት ነው ተመልሶ መጥቶ ይሄ ትራንዛክሽን ሲያነባው that data is no more 3.1 now it's 2.25 okay so read uncommitted data ማለት read uncommitted isolation level የምንጠቀምባቸው is to manipulate how the SQL server works by default blocking and locking control ለማድረግ minimally lock ሳያደርግ ይሄንን ዳታ pull ለማድረግ ስንጠቀም ነው read uncommitted የምንጠቀመው okay do we use it like I said 100 times before production ላይ ይሄን ነገር ማየት የለብንም This should never happen on production. There is not one test case I can think of for this to be used on a production data unless you don't care about the data you're pulling or this table is never, ever updated. Like, hey, student table, መቼም update የማይደረግ ከሆነ that means you're not even blocked, right? So you don't even need it, honestly. Because shared lock ነው select ስታርጉ shared lock ነው የምትወስዱት ስለዚህ you shouldn't necessarily that means different transactions can select from the same table they shouldn't be locking that much so ይሄንን የምታረጉ ከሆነ this table should be accessible all the time so why use this that means you are introducing what is it called a dirty read into your data so we have to be able to stop this from happening again I just wanted to show you guys that there's levels transaction isolation level interview ላይ ብትሰሙት which sometimes they do ask these questions what are transactional isolation levels ምናምን ብሎ ቢጠይቋችሁ now you would know ሌሎቹን explain ለማድረግ it will take me times and hours because gets very complicated as we go down like there's things we call row versioning ምናምን አንብቡትና ካልገባችሁ come back to me it's easier that way ለእናንተ explain ለማድረግ if you have a little bit of a background on those things okay so read committed እና read uncommitted ግን በደንብ ወቋት this is what it means አሁን እዚህ ጋር ቅድም ራን አድርጌ SP2 block run ባደርገው you guys አታዩትም because ይሄኛው it's not being blocked anything why would you see it on the SP2 ያልኩት ቅድሙ store procedure ላይ ለምን ታዩታላችሁ for those of you who don't know what SP2 is it's out of the box store procedure that we DBAs use usually blocking ቅድም እንዳዩት blocking transactionዎችን ለማየት የምንጠቀምበት store procedure ነው okay it's a well known store procedure I use it all the time I use that and I'll show you guys በኋላ blocking ሳስረዳ activity monitor as well በኋላ ላይ እናያቸዋለን እነሱ ሁለቱን I'm only going to show you what I usually use and it's been very useful okay so I'm going to show you those things there's a lot of DMV system views that you can use to get this data but I'm strictly going to focus on the things that I normally personally use because it could be very overwhelming there are thousands of DMVs dynamic management views there are thousands of DBCC commands ሁሉንም ሸምድዳችሁ አትችሉም don't try to study be a hero nobody knows all of them all right they're googleable okay so the most important ones በኋላ ላይ explain አደርጋችኋለሁ ግን read committed እና read uncommitted የሚለውን isolation level explain አደረኩት ማለት ነው right now okay all right good I was hoping that